it going, guys? It's me, Michael's Very Vintage here, and I thought I'd just do a simple little video to, I don't know, just explore some of the maps I've been making for a while here. I haven't really done anything too crazy over the last year. I've been busy with university and everything like that, but that's done now. It's all in the past. I graduated, so for now, let's just look over some of the sets here. So this is a smattering of some of the sets I've made, and of course, half of these are for An Astounding Tale from Outer Space. That's the one I just recently released, and the other one is for Mallrats Jet Lag, which is the movie project I'm working on over the summer. And I think first we'll start off with An Astounding Tale from Outer Space, and then we'll get to the goody stuff that maybe some of you Mallrat enthusiasts will love. So what I'm using here is Hammer++. It's a really good program for people who like to make source maps. Basically, it's the regular Hammer editor, but enhanced. There's a lot of enhancements to it. Like, for example, you can go and... well, I can't really name anything off the top of my head right now, but like, for example, there's a model browser, particle browser. So if you're looking for a specific particle, for example, like, you know, fog or whatever, then you can find it. You can actually preview it, and you don't have that in the regular Hammer editor, and I think that's a really convenient tool. But this video is about Hammer++. It's just, you know, I know somebody was going to ask about it. So this is the actual set itself for the first shot that you see in the video, which is, of course, the spaceship. It's not really modeled off of any specific design or genre or aesthetic. It's sort of a mix between Star Wars, how they design their ships, Alien, how everything is sort of muted and dirty, disgusting, gray, sad, and other elements from the U.S. Navy, for example, how they design their modern destroyers and battleships and aircraft carriers. USA Image Bag, that's just a fun little tag. I like to insert things like that in my machinimas from time to time, where it's just a name, a cute little reference to something. Like, we'll get to something else like that later on. We'll look at something else. But it's really just a simple model of a spaceship. Nothing really too interesting, other than it's surrounded by this gigantic blue screen box. And then past that is the actual skybox thing that you have to always worry about when making a Hammer map. Hammer doesn't like it when you leave seams in your maps. For example, there's no spot where the skybox, it's open, right? So this is enclosing the entire map. But if there was like a spot where it opens, like if I get this slicer tool and I do that, well, look at that. Now the map's exposed and it won't render properly. It won't like that. It has something to do with lighting or something. I have no idea. I don't know why. It's just an arbitrary rule. I think it really makes no sense. There's a lot of things with Source that seem arbitrary and make no sense whatsoever. And it's a little bit frustrating, but for the most part, you learn to work around it, and I think it makes you more creative when you're working with stuff like this. That's just my personal take on it. So this is just really simple, nothing too crazy. Not really insanely detailed. It doesn't have to be, though. We don't see it close up, and we don't see it very often, so it works in my favor, I would say. Okay, set_bridge, that's the next one we'll look at. We're kind of just going in sequence here. So this is the outside. Obviously, there's windows in the map. Although you don't really get a good chance to see outside the windows, still it helps to make stuff like this. Just an environment for everything to sit in. I'm using the night environment, even though you don't really get to see it. It's just this big box of space. And it looks really bad now, but that's only because the full bright setting is on. Like if we use the full bake, to use the... Oh. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Hammer. Note to self, guys, Source sucks, don't use it. Oh my god, it's so awful. No. Okay, we're back now. Sorry, the program crashed. I don't know why. Source sucks. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. But yeah, basically it's full bright. When there's actual light entities lighting everything up around the star field, it kind of looks a little bit better, but not really. We don't see this whole mess a whole lot, and I know the jittering looks scary. Don't worry, it gets a lot worse when you go in game. I'm not sure why it jitters like that. It could be just the specific thing I used. There's two ways to apply it. There's the apply decals tool, then there's this other one, overlay, and they're basically functionally the same thing, except one lets you modify the size and rotation of everything, and the other one doesn't, and I think it's really inconvenient that they're separated like that. So here's the actual inside of the ship itself. My idea with this was that it's a ship meant to be staffed by about 200 or 300 people, being staffed by only one person, which is Vern, the protagonist of the film. And there's just stuff everywhere. There's just garbage littered all over the place. There's nobody here in these little pit areas, you know, like they have in Star Wars, how they have the pit areas in the bridge. Empty seats, and then there's just garbage here, particularly nearby this little living room area, just bottles and stuff everywhere. Vern's meant to be characterized as this kind of slob. He doesn't really know how to do his job very well. He's lazy. As suggested in the opening shot, where he's flying in and there's his maintenance panel, but it's so shoddily repaired that he can't get anything done. So this is the actual computer itself. It's nothing too crazy. A couple of custom textures. Maybe they're a little bit too big. Something I noticed early on, but it's whatever. These props, they don't show up anywhere. I don't know why. Maybe because I have them set. Yeah, this is why. When you're making a hammer map and you set props down, but you don't want them to move, and you load the map in, and you're like, whoa, what happened to these props? Are they gone? Is there something wrong? No, nothing is wrong. Most of the props don't like it when you label them as prop_static, so you got to label them as prop_dynamic. Hit apply, and then later they'll appear in the actual final map when you run it. But that's just a mapper's tip. It's not really a filmmaker's tip. This is my favorite little detail up here, the Rumsfeld School of Bombing Third World Planets. It's a reference to two things. Number one, it's a reference to Donald Rumsfeld, who I think was the Secretary of Defense. He was involved somewhere in the Defense Department. It's a second reference to Family Guy, Hummer Guy. He screams Rumsfeld out loud when he crashes into other people. And so I thought it was a funny little thing, you know, School of Bombing Third World Planets. I like making fun of that era of modern history where we went to war with the Middle East. At first, maybe had some kind of purpose, but as it went on, it just kind of lost all meaning and didn't prove as effective as we thought it would. So it was just kind of an embarrassment to our country in some way. But that's all political stuff. I digress. Aside from everything else, though, I mean, it's a pretty simple map. I mean, there's nothing really too much to gloat about. I mean, you know, it's you take it as you see it, right? It's all laid out there in front. That's all a movie set's supposed to be. When you're making a custom set for a machinima or any film in general, you want everything to be as basic as possible. You don't want to make things that are too in-depth. Like, for example, this door, it literally leads to nothing. It's just a brush. It's just a simple brush. In this door, same here too. They don't lead anywhere. But that's what movie sets are. They try to make you believe that this sort of area it's a real thing. And maybe for me it's harder to visualize that because I'm the one making all this. So of course I know how I did every single thing and it ruins the magic. But for somebody who doesn't know any of this process, who is looking at this for the first time, they'll go, wow, it looks like an actual spaceship area, and you know, you've created this whole environment. And it's these little details like these that are so simple and so easy to do, but they add these little touches. They make the world feel lived in, and like you considered everything. So it feels like an actual tangible environment that you live in, not like a sitcom environment, for example. You ever look at a sitcom set and how they feel kind of weird? Like they look like a place that exists, right? You could go in and maybe it looks like a nice living room or a kitchen, but it's got that sort of uncanniness to it. It feels too long, too open. And that's because it's built on purpose like that, because sitcoms, they have different needs than film sets, and they feel more fake in that sort of sense, how everything's laid out, and it just doesn't look weird. Let's move on to the next one. I'm getting bored of this. So the next one I made is the stress relief chamber, or the stress relief simulation, or whatever. I'm not really sure. Everything looks kind of bare, and that's because for the most part I added a lot of the props in-game. I just felt it's more modular that way. The rule of thumb I like to subscribe to is if you're making a regular map, you want to add in as much detail as possible, which is always a plus. But for movie sets like this, you want to kind of keep it basic if you can. Like, of course, the bridge set wasn't really super duper simple like this map is, but I still kept it open enough and convenient to use so that if I did want to make a change, or if I wanted to add something later, or I wanted to remove something that I thought looked ugly, then you got that option. So it's best to keep everything as dynamic and modular as you can make it out to be, and I don't think there's any harm in it whatsoever. Here's a fun little trick. You don't see down the hall very often, because I purposely make it so you just see this part. And, well, because the hallways aren't the focus, right? It's just meant to be an ambiguous room somewhere in the ship. It's not really meant to have any sort of actual physical place in the environment. So when you go down these halls, you're wondering, oh, okay, is there anything cool down here? No, there's not. There's no wall here. There's the same familiar box that encapsulates everything so the map will render properly. And I don't put any light entities here, so the darkness kind of obscures the lack of detail, because there's not really any detail down this hallway. This is sort of a map I didn't put a lot of effort in, to be quite honest with you, because it's only seen for so long. It's not like the main set piece, like the bridge or the spaceship or the reactor, for example, which required a lot of forethought into figuring out how it's going to look. This one is just a sort of throwaway set. Welcome to the reactor set. This is what it looks like on the outside, and you never get a good look at this on the outside because of all the darkness. But here's what it looks like in the actual main set. This is the long hallway, same trick as the convenience store map, where you got this hallway that leads to nothing, except I actually did light it properly, because I wanted the characters to be able to look down and see the trail of explosions that come. Of course, the way I have it set up now, everything kind of looks like this really small space, like there's nothing to it. But these curves here, like down here, and then the curve over here to this little side area, which we'll look at later, it's all done on purpose, so I can purposefully put the camera here, and I can put the camera here, and here, and just obscure everything. So it doesn't look like it's one small area, it just looks like a vast array, like a huge network of these hallways. And that sort of expands the set even further. And again, to someone like me, you know it's small and it's one little piece, right? But to the audience, it's believable, because they don't know what this looks like beforehand. But I guess now you do, and now the magic's ruined, so I guess screw me, I guess, or whatever. They're all individual segments. I just copied and pasted them. It was kind of a pain in the ass, but, you know, it's whatever. Welcome to the main reactor room. This is where all the magic happens, where all the controlling and stuff goes down, so to speak. We don't get to see this desk a whole lot, or this desk a whole lot, because of the way I try to keep it tight, as tight as I can make it, without exposing too many unnecessary details. And again, it's just, you know, it's just a little added touch, so nothing felt too bare or crazy or weird. Here's what's on the screens, by the way. This first one is a screenshot from Mallrats Episode 3, Tri-State Radio Pirates, where they got the transmitter set up. This is actually the raw texture file I used for that scene specifically. And it looks technical, it fits. These next three are just images I grabbed off of Google. They're just basic DOS screens, nothing too crazy. And then this final one is from Wallace Breen's Day Off, where he's on the internet. You know, funny little thing. A pickle for the knowing ones, if you will. I like to add a lot of pickles for the knowing ones. And here's the actual reactor itself. Now, is it anything too impressive? No, not really, but I took some inspiration from Half-Life, how it had that sort of, you know, gigantic room for the, you know, the particle analyzer, whatever it's called. It's, you know, it's blanking on me, but pretty much that's what it's inspired by, the main inspiration. It's got this gigantic thing. It's just a bespoke reactor, nothing too crazy. This whole glass tube thing, it's breakable, you know, control... What? No. What? Alright, whatever. You know, I don't care. I don't even care anymore. I'm not using the map. It's just a bespoke reactor. It's not really meant to actually look like a real nuclear reactor or any sort of reactor that exists in our world. It's just a fun science fiction sort of thing. You got your glowing bit. You got all the support structure. What more do you need, right? I mean, really, it's that simple. And finally, here's the escape hangar. And this one I'm actually the most proud of, because I think it looks visually interesting. In my opinion. Maybe I could be wrong. I have no idea. I'm not an artist or anything. There's a lot of garbage here that really adds on to the whole junk's just littered everywhere. This spaceship is in such a mass amount of disrepair that even the escape pods are not really treated with any amount of respect. I mean, look at it. I mean, you see the door up here. It's implied to be this bigger hangar or whatever, and then you just got all this garbage littered everywhere right by these important life-saving, you know, installments over here. Nothing down here in this hallway. We don't even see a shot of this door in particular. I don't think I ever show it, because in the actual film, the camera's up here in the corner, right? And all you're seeing is this escape pod right here, which Vern's trying to access, which, by the way, this was a pain in the ass to try and build. I wouldn't recommend anybody build this specific setup, like, at all. You look at this independently, and it's really super simple. I mean, it's just a couple of blocks. This whole thing isn't even something you can enter. The door is unmoving. It's just a bunch of brush maps placed alongside each other, jammed into each other, clipping through. And, I mean, it looks really good, but you can't do anything practical with it. It's just a background piece, right? So let's put that back there. And let's go to this one. And I actually wanted to be able to put people in there and throw them down if I wanted to. And so I had to, of course, hollow everything out. So let's pull this out, and I'll show you the key differences between this and the other one, if it'll let me. So here we got the two of them, mostly side by side. Starting up here, this compromise right up here, you can see. Basically, there was no real convenient space to make this sort of fit, and I tried to hollow it out, but I think I've messed up somewhere. So it's a little jank, but we made it work. It's too high off. It's starting to clip through this red bit here, as opposed to this one, which is more comfortably set. It's got a decent amount of headroom, or whatever you call it. The door, I obviously had to change up a little bit. Well, I guess not really, but, you know, there's some compromises to that. It looks similar enough. Don't get me wrong. It does the job. It does the job well. But, you know, it wasn't fun. This part was not fun either, trying to get this sort of slanted tube design. I had to take 2 cylinders, hollow it out, and I had to try and find a way to mash them together, which, by the way, it looks super ugly from this angle. Thank God we only look at it from here. I didn't even bother trying to get an actual escape pod assembled together. If I wanted the ragdoll, like, I had the idea of the ragdoll either flying into this tube and falling down, or me walking in as the player character running down, or either way. So the player, or Vern, or whatever, they would slide down this, and then they would get into this bucket so I wouldn't lose them. Because remember, everything is inside this gigantic orange box, which is super inconvenient, because Hammer sucks and hates me and doesn't want any map leakage. So, you know, it's a little annoying, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And you know what, I had a lot of fun trying to figure that one out. And I think it looks really good for the most part. With all the complaints I have, it does its job. It looks very good. It fits in. It's just that slight little detail nobody's going to notice except me, because that's the kind of person I am. One more thing I'll add is I made this super wide open on purpose. Even though the hangar scene is really short and it's kind of sort of a gotcha moment. To be like, oh, hey, it was all just a film, guys. Oh, look at me, I'm so funny. But I originally had intended for this segment to be like an actual sort of quasi-gunfight, you know, like the final showdown between all of these clones, you know, the clones that survived anyways. They have these sniper battles, but I never finished the script. I got about 11 pages in, and I told myself, this is stupid, I'll just figure out an ending for myself. We'll do it live, you know. Okay, I'm bored of this. Let's go over to the stuff I made specifically for the Mallrats movie. And I haven't really gotten a good chance to show any of this off. I've been sitting on it for like 6 months, and I figured now would be a good time to actually show everybody. So this is the first look here. This is the first set I ever made, which is the control tower. You know how airports have that control tower. This is the perspective right here. So this is actually the 3D skybox for every map I made for An Astonishment from Outer Space. I did not use the 3D skybox. For every map for Jet Lag, though, I did, because I love making skyboxes. They're really fun, and I think they're really cute and chintzy and everything like that, and it's just a lot of fun. So the base texture, this is just a screen grab from John F. Kennedy Airport. Like, it's not that complex. It's a little warped perspective-wise, but overall, I tried my best to make it look somewhat cohesive. And you're not really looking at it from a high angle anyway. You're looking at it from down here. And it's in the skybox. It's in the background. People aren't going to notice it, like I said. So it all works out in the end. You look over here, and here is the actual control room. Now, it's very busy. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of computers and stuff. This one I actually did allow myself to use stuff from the workshop and from the internet, because it's my movie. I can do whatever I want. And there are lots of Garry's Mod movies out there that are, you know, full feature length, and they're original works, and they're very creative and very fun, and they use assets from the workshop. And, you know, I think at this point people sort of expect that, hey, if I post something on the workshop, it's probably going to be posted somewhere. Maybe not with my permission necessarily, and if somebody gets angry with that, they're going to have to deal with it. That's just the way it is when you post stuff online for people to use and enjoy in Garry's Mod. To sort of block out, because there are certain parts, like if you look from that sort of side, you can see a bit of choppiness. You can sort of see that line where the water line ends, and it looks really bad. You could also see the end point of this too. I added those shutters just to sort of block out that visibility. Not like it matters, because for the most part, you're going to be seeing everything out of this, and this window, not these side windows. It's not the main focus. They're going to be blocked off anyway too. I have a scene in the script where there's the control guy, and he's sitting here, and he's talking to the pilots. The pilots are sort of secondary characters in the film. And this is like supposed to be the first shot right here where he's playing whatever, right? He's playing like video games or something like that, for example, and he's getting really angry at them, like, oh, what are you doing? You know, go ahead, land or whatever. Let me get back to my game or whatever. I don't even remember at this point, but, you know, that's what it's supposed to be. And everything else I gotta just set dressing. But I keep it detailed enough to where if I want to place it anywhere else, if I want to use this for any other purpose, I most certainly can. It's not just specifically for this movie specifically. I could just use it for whatever, and I think that sort of adaptability helps out. So let's get out of this. It's a pretty small map. Let's go to something a bit bigger. Let's go to the Concourse. Let's go there. Welcome to the Concourse. It's pretty wide open. Nothing relatively impressive for the most part. But you know, it's just a set. Like I said, it's just a set, guys. What are you so worried about? Why do you want everything to have such continuity? It's just a set. There's two main areas to this. There's this area where people can sit and wait for their flights, and there's this window out here. I'll show you the skybox in a second. And then there's this other area, which is sort of like an entrance in a way, but not really, because I do have an entrance map that I made. That was the last map I made ever for this specific project, but we'll get there when we get there. We have little TSA setups. This sort of was inspired by TF2 Air, specifically the second one, where they actually go through TSA. They don't just start off on the plane, they actually go through TSA, and TSA kind of being dicks to them. And there are a bunch of SWAT guys and everything, and I thought that was really funny because they're just these aggressive guys who abuse their minuscule amount of power and stuff, right? Because somebody had a full-size shampoo bottle or whatever. My favorite thing to do with all these maps is by far adding these advertisements. I love advertisements. Advertisements just tell you a lot about the world. It tells you about the sentiments that people care about what marketers think is important to people, about what brands and businesses are open. Like, for example, this one, Metro World Web, set in 2008. Internet cafes were still pretty big. Makes sense that they would advertise this, you know, especially something this big. Don't actually call this phone number. Don't actually go to this website. I have no idea if they're active or not. This one's a little hilarious, but I made it in like 2 seconds, so I don't really care about it as much. These are the little finer details of the scheduled flights, because all airports have these gigantic signs telling you what flights are delayed or on time, or so you got all the stuff here, just a bunch of garbage names that nobody cares about. The top one is Burbank Wood. That's not a real city, it's a fake city. Burbank Wood, New York. That's the main draw of the movie, where they go to Burbank Wood, New York for a vacation, because it's their vacation time, they're getting out, all that good stuff. And yeah, this is another thing. It's just not. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just a public service announcement at the end of the day, really. Red text, sales. So it's a combination of a criticism of consumerism and American consumerism in particular, especially around that time, and the TSA. So if you know where to look, you can see my sort of inner thoughts about these sort of things. We got other ads too. Lee Banner. A camera brand that I brought up in Mitchell's internet videos one time. Missing person, Phil Lombardi. This is actually from a friend of mine. His name's Sam. He made the Manhattan Mega Mall maps that people have been really enjoying recently. The other ones too, like Aughts, for example. And this is one of the posters from the mall map, and I thought it was really funny, so I made my own version of it. And then, of course, there's Flying Today, Don't Go Without TNA. This is the actual airliner that the mall rats go on to go to Burbank Wood, and I have a custom model for the airplane livery, but we'll get there when we get there. And then these are just some other scant advertisements. I've made these a long time ago, and I've been using them pretty regularly because they're just so convenient to use, and I think they still hold up. They're still funny. They're chintzy, but they also, you know, they're very much me. They have my own sense of humor, and they just add on to the world, and I think it's very important to have that sort of thing in your environment. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, let's go look at the skybox. Skybox is always fun. I put it all the way down here for whatever reason. Here it is. I got a vast open ocean in this direction specifically because this is where the concourse is supposed to be in relation to the entire airport. So there's the control tower that we saw earlier, trying to relate everything to a sort of movement. Nothing really particular. It's just a city. It's something to add flair. The horizon, the runways, etc. This one's kind of the most basic out of all of them, I want to say. Nothing really too impressive. Let's go on to another map here. This is the third map I worked on, and it's called set_tarmac. And I call it the tarmac because this is supposed to be where all the planes, you know, they cargo up and they refuel and all that fun stuff. So we've got a couple of models I ripped from the workshop. Some of them are okay, like this one, and then the others are just the exact same model that I used for the transnational American plane, but you know, I digress. It adds flair, it does all that good stuff. Here's the actual plane itself that the protagonists are going to be flying on. So the airline is Transnational American, and there are of course funny little details that I add, like I do to everything I make, and you're probably not going to see it in the final cut, but you're going to see it here. Second-rate intercontinental jet. Some symbols, because I saw in one of the other textures that they had like airliner symbols on it or whatever, so I just put random bullshit on, like Interstate 81, like, you know, just funny stuff like that. So there's a bunch of humors on there, you know, like because the company's called Boeing, right? So I called it Boner, you know, like boner, like cock, you know. So there is humor in the map. And there's another. I know I lied. That's not another Transnational American. You've got your junk over here. I feel like every tarmac needs just a pile of random junk. And then you've got your security gate, which I think is a little cute addition. You know, you just got your little security desk. I mean, what's there to think about? There's nothing in this room. I don't think I'm ever going to use this room. I don't even know why I included it. And, oh my god, I'm just noticing now the door frames have no textures. Oh no. Oh well, I don't care. It's too late. You're not going to see it anyway. Who cares about this stuff, right? Who cares? We've also got all these warning signs here. I feel like no tarmac or security checkpoint is complete without just a bunch of random bullshit. You know, like you got your danger, you got your restricted parking zones and your speed limits and restricted area, these signs. I don't even know what the hell this is for. It's just there. And this, most of these are taken from Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead's got a lot of good casual props if you know where to look, guys. So if you're a map maker, you know, look into Left 4 Dead. Get your Left 4 Dead props ingested into your system. Mount them to your Gary's mod, man. Include them in your map builds. You know, use pack wrap. Put them in for people who don't have Left 4 Dead. And there you go. I mean, come on, it's that simple, guys. So here we go. Here's the skybox, and yeah, it's a hot load of wet ass, but like I said, it gets the job done. That's all you really need it to do. So it doesn't line up very perfectly with the last map, but you know what? Filmmaking, it doesn't matter. Continuity doesn't matter in terms of world space. For the most part, it does, but for like background noise like this, it really doesn't. Like, it really doesn't matter. You know, you got the control tower here. Technically speaking, that concourse should be right over here where this runway is, but it's not. Nobody's going to notice, nobody's going to care, except maybe if you watch this video and look back at the movie when it comes out. It's like, wow, Michael is a freaking loser. He doesn't know how to make maps. Trust me, I know what I'm doing, guys, okay? I know what I'm doing. So it leads off over here into this, the actual runway. And there's more planes and stuff. You know, you got the skybox planes, and you got the roads leading on to nothing. Literally nothing. It just runs into the building, I think. And people aren't going to notice that. There's our bespoke city. Now with more detail in the back, we've got some more skyline stuff going on in the background. So when you look at it from afar, because we're outside now technically, you kind of need more. You know, if you're at this level, you got this fence blocking it, so for the most part you don't got to worry about this empty space. But looking at it from here, there you go. You got your skyline right there. You got your planes, and everything looks convincing enough. This is by far probably the most detailed skybox I have, and this is for set_runway, and I say that because it's got a huge ass fucking runway on it, you know, and that's important. You're gonna see a lot of things. I mean, the set in relation to the world, it's right there. This is where the last map takes place. Again, not as, you know, it makes sense, but it's not completely 100% lining up. I tried my best, but I failed. So you got the actual gigantic runway here, which is where the actual plane's gonna take off, you know, all that good stuff. You got the actual airport right there. If you're down below, this fence cuts off the blank details, but you can see remnants of a city, some sort of city of some kind back there. So it looks like it's in New York City and everything. Again, there's our bespoke unnamed city, but now you notice there's no space here. What happened to that, Michael? And to that I say, let's look at the actual map now. And this one's a little bit more basic. Nothing a whole lot going on. For this one, I kind of just focused more on trying to line up everything with the skybox so it looked convincing, because the plane's going to be coming down through here, and really all this is just set dressing for the plane taking off and landing. Like, that's really about it. I don't really see a universe where I'm using this part like at all. It's just a bunch of garages, you know, and it really serves no purpose, and it's too much effort just to put all this detail into something that's really not going to be seen a whole lot. Alright guys, sorry about that, I'm back. So you're going to hear a fan in the background, and that's because it's hot and I don't want to turn off my air conditioning. So you're just going to kind of have to deal with it for this last part here. But this is this is the final this is the final set that I made here. John F. Kennedy International Airport. It's the sort of drop-off area. You know what I'm talking about? You know, all airports, they got this place where you drive up and you drop off your passenger and then you drive away and all that good stuff. That's basically what this says. Is it accurate to the real JFK International? No, not really. Did I use any references? No, also not really. So this is kind of just a fictionalized version of what John F. Kennedy International Airport looks like in the Mallrats universe. So if you really wanted to know what JFK Airport looked like, here you go. So we got the entrance right here. You walk in, and then, oh, look at this. Look at this wide space. Seats are a little different. I had some issues earlier when I was making the first map, the Concourse. The seats would disappear, and I'm like, why is it doing that? And then I realized I'm just an idiot, and I was using the wrong props. So we got the right props here, and they actually look okay. Maybe a little out of place, but I'm not too worried. We also got more of these advertisements, these little fun advertisements here. This is another pickle for the knowing ones, making the world safe for Freeman. I love this image. More advertisements, and then this cigarette ad. I'm not sure where I found that from. I just thought it was funny to include. So yes, people are still being advertised cigarettes in the Mallrats universe. Now you know definitively. We've got a set of hallways here, and you know, they're implied to be going to a different part of the airport. But it's just a simple black texture at the end. It's nothing really too fancy or anything like that. There's no real actual way to get up here also. There's no stairs. It's just kind of there. That's the fun part about making sense. Things can, you know, don't have to be pretty sensical. Things can just be all over the place. And I mean, it works, right? I mean, it adds to the illusion. Skybox. It's not that intensive. It's actually one of the simpler ones, really. You got some trees there to obscure the garbage. You got the city line right here. Since this is a part of Lower Brooklyn or whatever, I want to say it's at the ass end of Queens, at least the way I have it set up on the map. So, you know, you're not really going to see any of the big cities or anything like that. You just got a bunch of random buildings, and they get the job done. It looks Brooklyn-ish. You got these side buildings over here. They're just dark for no particular reason. I just stole them from Left 4 Dead. They just came like that, and I think they add. And I'll show you one final thing that I was thinking about but never really developed. This is the beginning of a miniature New York City map that I was thinking about making. Because obviously we're going to need shots of New York City. The plane's flying, right? When it takes off, when it lands, you want those wide swooping shots of the city, and there's just a random ass building here for scale. Nothing too crazy, but I'm not clearly using this anymore. I kind of left it at this beginning stage here where I'm just kind of sort of building Manhattan Island because I'm using city skylines for all of my city shots. It's a pain in the ass to make everything in city skylines because the game runs like dog shit. It doesn't matter how much RAM you give yourself. You could have 64 gig. I have 32 gigs of RAM on my machine, and the game still runs like duty poo-poo butt. But you know, I digress. Yeah, you make it work, and I think it adds a more interesting flair to it than I make it in city skylines. It's more optimized for that. So you know, it's whatever. And I think I'm going to leave it here. I mean, I really just wanted to explore some of these maps because I never really get a chance to fully show off any of this stuff to people. I think map making is a useful tool to have if you're a machinima maker, especially if you're a Gary's Mod machinima maker or any sort of source filmmaker sort of person, because, not for nothing, Hammer++, I mean, it's a confusing program to learn at the start, but once you get the hang of things, it becomes really just super easy and quick to whip these up. I mean, all these maps that I made them in a relatively short period of time. I mean, a couple of weeks, give or take. So it's not really complex to do all this sort of things. You know, you could just go in and make maps, and then boom, there you go, you got your set. I mean, if you want to make it intricate, go right ahead. You can most certainly do that, or you can also use things from the workshop. Nobody's stopping you. If you want that extra hint of creativity, of that novelty, the freshness, this is the way to go to make all the maps yourself. I mean, how many times have you seen GM Big City in a machinima, right? Or Construct or Flatgrass? Nobody's ever going to see this type of stuff. So I'll sort of close out here then, I guess. Hope you enjoyed this look at some of the maps I made. Hope you enjoyed An Astounding Tale from Outer Space, and we'll be working on the film shortly here, really soon. So when that's done and released and all that stuff, I hope you enjoyed that as well. And I hope you enjoyed taking a little relaxing sit down with me as we just look at some of these maps. So I'll catch you later, and have a great day.